6:47 a.m. I'll never forget that sound. The bolt cutters shrieking through the padlock on my grandfather's 200-year-old barn. I was standing at the kitchen window, steam fogging the glass, coffee turning cold in my hand, but I barely noticed. I'd waited 6 long months for this. Vivian Caldwell, queen tyrant of the HOA, had just waltzed right into the trap I'd set, wearing her arrogance like a perfume. And Sheriff Martinez was waiting for her inside, ready to put an end to her reign. I'm Dale Thornfield, 58, machinist by trade. Nothing fancy, just a man who likes fixing what he owns, keeping his head down, staying out of trouble. My family's been here since before the railroad, back when Meadowbrook was just pines and wild grass in that barn, built in 1823 by my grandfather's own hands. The old place still smells like motor oil and sawdust, and every nick in the workbench tells a story about men who actually worked for what they had. It isn't just a building, not to us, it's who we are. It's our family's blood and sweat in those beams. Then, as it always goes, everything changed. The developer sold off the last lot, and suddenly all these city folks moved in with their stainless steel appliances and their visions. You know how it starts. One day you're waving at a neighbor hauling hay. The next, you're fielding complaints from people who think home ownership gives them the right to police your life. For a while, I tried to roll with it. But then along came Vivian Caldwell, 52, bleach blonde bob, tailored suit, white Lexus. She drove like a tank. She was the kind of person who measures your grass with a ruler and thinks a clipboard gives her the power of God. First time she showed up at my door, she was waving a certified letter like it was my death sentence. "Your structure violates community aesthetics," she said, all fake politeness. "Remove it within 60 days or face $1,500 daily fines." I just stared and laughed, told her she'd picked the wrong fight. She gave me this look like she could scrub me right out of her perfect little world and added, "We're trying to maintain a certain standard here. Certain types of people understand the vision." And she looked right down at my work boots and paint-stained jeans, as if she'd just stepped in something. Now, I've dealt with a lot of bosses in my life, but none who used property values as a weapon quite like Vivian did. Wasn't long before my buddy Rex from the hardware store pulled me aside and whispered, "Dale, word is she's digging through county records. Her husband's with Meridian Development. They're buying land out east. You might be next." That night, I stayed up until my eyes burned, digging through my grandfather's old papers, hunting for anything that could help. And there it was, the deed, older than the Civil War, with language that put the barn under historic protection, 2 centuries before any HOA even existed. But knowing that and stopping Vivian Caldwell, 2 very different things. She went full throttle, showed up unannounced, snapped pictures, filed complaint after complaint. 12 in 1 year, everything from rodent harboring to structural hazard. Every single one got tossed out. Even Mike Rodriguez, the county inspector, started bringing his own thermos when he came by. "Mr. Thornfield," he sighed, tapping those old beams, "this is what quality sounds like. Whoever's got it out for you needs a new hobby." He wasn't wrong, but Vivian wasn't giving up. A couple weeks later, she calls a community safety meeting. Out of morbid curiosity, I show up and walk straight into a circus. She's got a slideshow of my barn on the screen, zoomed in like it's a crime scene. "This structure attracts undesirable activity," she announced. Translation? She didn't like that my friends had darker skin and drove pickups. The message was clear as glass. I couldn't just stand there, so I walked up with my folder in hand. "Before you vote away history," I said, "maybe you should know what's really in that barn." I laid out photos and documents from the Historical Society. Evidence the place was once a stop on the Underground Railroad, with hidden compartments for families escaping slavery. You could have heard a pin drop. Mrs. Patterson, who'd lived there 80 years, whispered, "My grandmother used to tell stories about that." Even the fluorescent lights seemed to hold their breath. Vivian's mask slipped, just for a second, but she wasn't done. Next morning, more letters, fines, threats, environmental hazards. She couldn't win with a vote, so she switched to fear. Patrol cars cruised by. HOA volunteers in matching polos parked near my drive, clipboards in hand. Vivian herself would sit in her idling Lexus, engine humming, just staring for hours. I quit sleeping. I started to wonder if maybe I really was the problem, if I should just sell up and leave, give the ghosts of my family's history over to some developer. I was ready to give in. But then, twist of fate, right? My nephew Jay calls, out of breath, "Uncle Dale." I found it. The original 1952 clause. It protects any agricultural structure built before development. And the kicker? Harold Whitman, first HOA president, signed the acknowledgement when the association started. For a second, I just sat there, then I laughed. One of those laughs that starts in your gut and ends sharp. The tide had turned. The next day, I called Patricia Holbrook, my attorney, sharp as a tack, doesn't flinch around bullies. She flipped through my papers, grinned, and said, "Dale, this isn't just property. This is a federal civil rights violation. And if we play it right, they'll pay for every nail in that barn." Now I had ammo, and so did the sheriff. Sheriff Martinez, a 20-year Army vet, straight shooter, not a fan of HOA drama. "Dale," he said, "let him think they're winning. We'll be ready." So that's exactly what we did. Set up hidden cameras, legal observers, body cams. I pretended to withdraw my appeals, stopped answering their letters, even let the grass get a little too high, just enough to tickle Vivian's control issues. She took the bait, hook, line, and Lexus. 2 days before the showdown, some guy in a phony gas company uniform shows up, claims there's a leak by the barn. The only thing that stank was his cologne. "Show me your work order," I said, phone recording. He took off faster than a squirrel at a dog park. Called the real gas company. No such employee. Vivian was getting desperate, sending goons to trespass. The night before, I didn't sleep a wink. That barn sat in the moonlight like an old soldier, scarred but undefeated. I thought of my grandfather, how he built it through war and depression, how I'd almost let some clipboard tyrant tear it all down. No more. And then, 6:47 a.m., that beautiful, ugly sound. Metal on metal. My heart didn't beat fast from fear, but from satisfaction. 3 guys in matching Alpine security polos snipped my chain and walked right in. "Entry achieved, beginning compliance assessment," one of them said into his radio. They didn't know Sheriff Martinez was behind the central beam, body cam rolling. "County Sheriff," he thundered, "you're under arrest for breaking and entering private property." Panic pure and simple. The men froze, dropped their bolt cutters like kids caught with stolen candy. "We have legal authorization," one of them barked. Martinez just stared. Authorization from who? HOA doesn't outrank federal law. And right then, Vivian's white Lexus screeched up my drive, heels clicking on the gravel, leather folder swinging like a sword. "Sheriff, this is a sanctioned safety inspection," she shouted, chest puffed up. Martinez didn't blink. "Ma'am, you're interfering with a criminal investigation." That was my cue. I walked up, folder in hand, every document I collected over 6 grueling months. "Vivian, you spent half a year accusing me of breaking rules, but you just broke federal law, and every second is on camera." Her jaw was set so tight, I thought her teeth might crack. "You can't," she started, but I cut her off. "Oh, but I can. You trespassed, falsified documents, used HOA money for private gain. That's not enforcement. That's conspiracy." By then, neighbors were pouring out of their houses, phones out, filming everything. Rex, Mrs. Patterson, even Sarah Ivy from the HOA board. The street was buzzing, everyone watching as the woman who made their lives miserable finally got what was coming. Vivian looked around, realizing she had no allies left. Sheriff Martinez turned to her, voice calm. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for criminal conspiracy, harassment, and violation of federal property protections." The handcuffs snapped. I swear it was the best sound I'd heard in years, like poetry you can hear. Vivian tried one last time. "This is ridiculous. I was protecting our community." I met her eyes, steady as I could. "No, you were protecting profit, not people." Patrol cars lined the street. News vans showed up, cameras rolling, lights flashing. Martinez read Vivian her rights while the same neighbors she'd bullied watched, some cheering, some just relieved. Her husband tried to slip out in his BMW. but the deputies had blocked the road. Classic. For 6 months, she hunted me like a criminal. And now, with the dawn burning over my grandfather's barn, she was the one in cuffs. I didn't cheer, didn't gloat, just watched the barn behind her, scarred but still standing, same as me. People like Vivian Caldwell think they own the law because they can afford better lawyers, but that morning proved something different. The law still belongs to folks who stand by it, even when it's hard. You can threaten a man, you can try to scare him off his own land, but you can't erase the history built by generations of honest hands. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just the quiet click of handcuffs at sunrise, the sound of arrogance finally running out of excuses. Now, let me ask you, if your whole life's work was threatened by someone with a clipboard and a grudge, would you stand your ground? Or would you walk away and let them win? Drop your thoughts below. Tell me what justice means to you, and if you've ever faced down a bully with more power than sense. I read every comment, and I know I'm not alone out here.